Okay, so for this part of the project, we are going to be creating a database. You can do this in Visual Studio directly, but I would highly recommend that you do it in Visual Studio, in SQL Server Management Studio. So I'm going to just open up SQL Server Management Studio on my computer. Connect. So here I'm going to create a new database. And I'm going to call Green Pages MVC. That's the project. Particular reason or problem with that, but so now if I go to, as you see, I've been doing this different kinds of projects. This was my .NET Core project. So here I'm going to start creating tables. Well, what are the green pages? They are lists of people, and for each person, lists of phone numbers, addresses, and email addresses. So obviously the main object here is person. So I'm going to create the person table first. New table. What kind of fields does a person need? Well, a person needs a person ID to identify the person uniquely. That will be an integer, and I will not allow nulls there. They need first name. That can be varchar. Let's make that 255 for first name. I am gonna allow nulls on that one. Last name, I'm not gonna allow nulls. I'm gonna make sure that you at least have a last name. Not gonna allow nulls there. So question is, I wanna make this person, each ID, I don't care what the IDs are, but I want them all to be unique. So the way you do that is you make it an auto number, right? So if you go down to the bottom, you can see identity specification. So I'm going to say yes. And it says, what do you want it to be? Seed 1 with an identity increment 1. That means it starts at 1 and it goes up by 1 every new one that's created. Okay. Now that I've done that, I'm going to make this the primary key. Right. So that's all I need to do here, right? So now I'm going to save it. I'm going to click the save button. It's asking me, what do you want to call it? I like to name people plural because they're not people, they're person objects. So I call it persons instead of people. Persons. So now let's look at what happened. I'm going to refresh. Created a persons table with the columns I wanted. Created a primary key called PK persons. And that is a clustered index. Don't need to worry about that. That's what that is. You can only have one clustered index per table. It's basically the way you identify a row. That's what it's saying. So there's the persons table. So now let's just start out with something easy. Let's do the phone number table. So say here, tables, new table. It's going to have a phone number ID. Int, not allowing null. And it's going to be an auto number, identity, yes. Let's see if I can type it in that way. If you just type yes, it'll go in there. I think if you type 1, because it's Boolean, it will make it yes. And I want to make that the primary key. So a cheat sheet here. The field here, number. Right. So this is not allowing null, varchar, and I'm going to make it maximum size. Let's just make it 50 for that reason. And then what else about a phone number is important? Well, one of them is what person does it belong to? How do we say that? With person ID. This we want to be a set of relationship, add. So it's saying foreign key table to table, right? So foreign key, I'm going to call it phone numbers to persons. Cheat sheet, make sure I call them the same thing. And that is on the person ID. And then the tables, phone number ID from table 1 to phone number ID table 2. So persons. So the primary key table is persons. The foreign key table is this table. Make sense? Person ID. Okay. Close. So now this has a foreign key relationship to the persons table. Okay. See if there's anything else crazy to do with this. Nope. Okay, so now I can click save. And I'm going to call it phone numbers. Yes. I can get rid of that error. You can do it in preferences for that message. So now if I refresh tables list, so you've got the phone numbers table, it's got columns, it's got keys, indexes, and everything is right with the world, right? Just looking for the different data types here. Okay, so now we want to do the exact same thing with a email. Very simple. Let's go ahead and do that. New table, email address, ID, integer, allow null, set primary key, identity. Let's try 1. Nope, 1 doesn't work. You have to type in yes. And we'll say, we'll call this column cheat sheet time. Just email. Car 255 and person ID. Integer, not allow null. Indexes and keys. Sorry, right click, relationships. Add. So we'll call it email addresses underscore persons person ID. Here we will set the field. Primary key table is persons, person ID, person ID. Okay. Looks like we're good. Close. Save it as email address. Okay. Again, refreshing. Now we have email addresses. Now we're going to do addresses, new table, address, ID, integer, not allow null, set primary key, make it an identity specification. Oh, wow, that was good. Just double click on it, looks like. Addresses have address line 1, I don't want to allow null there, but I will allow null on address line 2. City. State. State I'm going to make varchar 2, so it can be just the 2-digit. And then zip. Is varchar. We'll make that 10, so we can do 10-digit zip codes. And then person ID, int. Right? And we're going to do relationships, add addresses to persons, person ID. Here we're going to persons, person ID becomes person ID here. Okay, those, click the old save, addresses. Okay, so refresh. As you see here, we've got our 4 tables. That's exactly what we wanted here. One other thing that I would do, just as a, I would say, add a new, create a new index. I guess I got to go into the designer. I'm in the designer. So here I'm going to create a new index on person ID. Indexes are important. It helps. So if there are thousands and thousands of addresses, but only 2 of them for one person, if I put an index on person ID on this table, it'll find it a lot more quickly. And it has to do with spanning trees and a lot of binary trees and stuff. So I won't explain it too much, but let's just say it works. So address is person ID. And here it'll be on person ID, ascending. Okay, close. I do that the same on email addresses. Keys. Person ID. Okay. Those. Save. And on phone numbers. We already have it on person, so. Oh, what am I doing? Close. Sorry. I need to redo that. Indexes and keys. It already changed. Jeez. I messed up a little bit there. Sorry. I'm going to add a new one. Call it index phone numbers. Person ID. Okay. Close. Save. So now refresh. And I go to addresses. You'll see I've got 2 keys and 2 indexes. Okay. And that's it. We've created the database. Now we can use this database to create the entity framework objects in our project so that we don't have to worry about anything about saving or anything like that. All right. So that'll be the next video.